Commander Jake Hudson stepped onto the red soil of Sulphuria, feeling the strange pull of its gravity. His boots sank slightly into the ground as he took his first breath of alien air. It smelled like copper and something sweet he couldn't name. Behind him, the small diplomatic ship from Earth hummed quietly. "Remember, Commander," Captain Lewis said from the ship's door, "we need this alliance. Be respectful, follow their customs, and try not to start a war." Jake nodded. After 5 years of sending messages back and forth, humans had finally been invited to meet the Kelteri in person. These warrior aliens were known for their advanced shield technology, something Earth desperately needed for its defense systems. The welcoming party approached. Tall, blue-skinned aliens with ridged foreheads moved with surprising grace despite their muscular builds. Their eyes, completely black, watched Jake carefully. Most wore simple leather-like armor, but a few were dressed in metal plates that caught the light of Sulphuria's two suns. An older Kelteri with white markings on his face stepped forward. "I am Elder Zorkal. We welcome you to our world, human." Jake bowed as he had been instructed. "Thank you for your hospitality. I am Commander Jake Hudson of Earth, here to establish friendship between our worlds." The meeting area was a large circle of flat stones. Hundreds of Kelteri had gathered to watch the first human visitor. Jake followed Elder Zorkal to the center where a fire burned in a stone pit. "Before we speak of treaties," Zorkal announced loudly, "the human must prove his worth." Jake hadn't expected this, but he kept his face calm. First contact missions were always unpredictable. "Who challenges?" called Elder Zorkal. The crowd parted. A female Kelteri warrior stepped forward. She was taller than most, with deep blue skin marked with battle scars. Her black armor gleamed, and her eyes fixed on Jake with clear distaste. "I, Vexera, daughter of Chief Korvac, challenged the soft human," she announced, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. Elder Zorkal nodded. "Vexera is our finest young warrior. She will test you, human." Jake stood straight. He had trained for combat, but fighting wasn't part of the diplomatic plan. "I am here in peace," he said carefully. Vexera laughed, a harsh sound. "Peace is earned through strength on Sulphuria." She circled Jake slowly. "If you cannot defend yourself, how can your people be worthy allies?" The crowd murmured in agreement. Jake realized he had no choice but to accept some kind of challenge. "What must I do?" he asked. Without warning, Vexera reached behind her back and pulled out a ceremonial spear. The weapon glinted in the sunlight, its metal tip sharp and deadly. Before Jake could react, she had hurled it directly at his chest. Time seemed to slow. Jake's enhanced reflexes, a standard upgrade for space travelers dealing with different gravities, kicked in. He saw the spear spinning toward him, calculated its path, and did the only thing he could. He caught it. His hand closed around the shaft mere inches from his heart. The force pushed him back half a step, but he remained standing, the spear now firmly in his grip. Complete silence fell over the gathering. Elder Zorkal's eyes had widened in shock. Around them, some Kelteri had fallen to their knees. Vexera stood frozen, her expression changing from confidence to disbelief. "Impossible," she whispered. Elder Zorkal approached slowly. "In all our history, no one has caught Vexera's spear." He turned to the crowd. "The ancient law is clear." Jake looked down at the weapon in his hand, unsure what was happening. What ancient law? When a warrior's challenge weapon is caught rather than dodged or blocked, the warrior is bound to serve the one who caught it for life. Elder Zorkal explained, his voice heavy with meaning. "Vexera is now yours, by our most sacred tradition." Vexera's face twisted in rage and shock. "No, he is an outsider. He cannot know our ways." "The law predates even first contact with other worlds," said a new voice. An imposing Kelteri in elaborate armor pushed through the crowd. From the respectful way the others moved aside, Jake guessed this was someone important. "Father," Vexera protested, confirming Jake's suspicion that this was Chief Korvac. The law is absolute, Botter, the chief said firmly, though his eyes burned with anger as he looked at Jake. You challenged, and he caught your spear. By the laws of our ancestors, you are bound to him until his death or yours. Jake realized he was now holding not just a spear, but the fate of two worlds in his hands. What had begun as a simple diplomatic mission had just become infinitely more complicated. I meant no offense, Jake said carefully. I was only defending myself. Intention matters not. Elder Zorkul replied. What is done is done. As Jake looked at the furious Vexera, he knew the real challenge was just beginning. The meeting hall was tense. Jake sat at a large stone table with Elder Zorkul, Chief Korvac, and several other important Kelteri. Vexera stood behind him, as tradition now required, but he could feel her anger radiating like heat. I wish to release Vexera from this obligation, Jake said, trying to fix the situation. There must be a way to undo this. Chief Korvac's eyes narrowed. You would dishonor my daughter further. First you bind her, then you reject her service. Jake realized he had made another mistake. I meant no disrespect. I'm still learning your ways. That is clear, Elder Zorkul said. But the binding cannot be undone without great shame to both of you. It would mark Vexera as unworthy for the rest of her days. And it would likely start a war, added another elder. Many would see it as an insult to our most sacred traditions. Jake looked over his shoulder at Vexera. Her face was like stone, but her black eyes burned with emotion. Then what happens now? Jake asked. You return to your ship tonight, Chief Korvac said. Tomorrow, we will continue our talks. Vexera will accompany you as your bound warrior. After the meeting, Captain Lewis was not happy when Jake explained the situation. You've been on this planet for less than a day, and you've already acquired an alien. Lewis paced the small meeting room of their ship. The higher-ups are going to love this. It wasn't exactly my choice, Jake said, but we still need their shield technology. Earth's defenses won't hold against another Draxan attack without it. Lewis sighed. Fine. Where is she now? Outside. She refuses to enter our ship. At least that's one problem we don't have to deal with yet. Later that night, Jake found Vexera sitting on a rock near the ship, staring at the 3 moons of Talthoria. May I join you? He asked. She didn't look at him. I cannot stop you. You are my master now. Jake winced at the word. I don't want to be anyone's master. On Earth, we don't have such customs. Then Earth must be weak, she said. How do you know who serves whom? We choose to work together. We make agreements. Vexera finally turned to him. And when agreements are broken, there are consequences, but not this, Jake said, gesturing between them. Your ways are strange. She looked back at the moons. I was to be the next war chief. Now I am bound to an alien who knows nothing of honor or combat. Jake sat on a nearby rock. I've fought in battles. I've lost friends to war. I know more than you think. You caught my spear by luck, she said bitterly. Maybe, or maybe humans are stronger than you believe. For the first time, Vexera seemed to really look at him. We shall see. Tomorrow, you begin learning our ways. If you are to command me, you must at least understand our people. And will you try to understand mine? She made a sound that might have been a laugh. What is there to understand about beings who apologize for winning? The next morning, Jake met with the Kelteri Council again. This time, they showed him something that made his heart race. Diagrams of their shield technology. We have heard of the Draxan attacks on your world, Elder Zorkul said. We face a similar threat from deep space. Chief Korvac pointed to a star map. The void hegemony approaches both our worlds. We have kept them at bay with our shields, but their weapons grow stronger. So this alliance, Jake began, is necessary for both our peoples, finished Elder Zorkul. Your weapons combined with our shields might be enough to defeat them. As Jake studied the technology, he felt Vexera watching him. When he looked up, her expression had changed slightly. "You understand these designs?" she asked, sounding surprised. "Yes, I was an engineer before I became a commander." For a moment, something like respect flickered in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by her usual cold stare. "Come," she said. "If you are to be useful here, you must learn to walk like a warrior, not like prey." As she led him from the council chamber, Jake realized he had a long way to go to earn her respect. But for the first time, he saw a tiny crack in her armor. 3 days had passed since Jake's arrival on Salthoria when Elder Zorkel called for him. "The High Council has made a decision," the elder said as Jake entered the sacred chamber. The room was lit by glowing crystals, casting blue light on the 12 council members seated in a circle. "What decision?" Jake asked, feeling Vexera stiffen behind him. "For a Keltari warrior to be bound to an outsider is unprecedented," said a female elder with facial markings Jake hadn't seen before. "Many believe you are unworthy of commanding one of our finest warriors." Chief Korvac leaned forward. "Therefore, you must prove yourself through the trial of 7 moons." Jake looked around at their serious faces. "What is this trial?" 7 challenges, 1 for each moon in our system," Elder Zorkel explained. "Physical and mental tests that even our young warriors train years to complete. Has any outsider ever done this before?" "No," said Chief Korvac with a slight smile. "None have tried. Most would die in the attempt." Jake understood the message. They were hoping he would fail, or better yet, refuse to try. Either way, they could break the binding without dishonor to Vexera. "And if I complete these trials?" Jake asked. "Then all must accept your binding to Vexera," Elder Zorkel said. "And our alliance with Earth can move forward." Jake nodded slowly. "I accept the trial." As they left the chamber, Vexera grabbed his arm. The first time she had touched him voluntarily. "You are a fool," she hissed. "The trial kills even Keltari warriors. You will not survive." "Then you'll be free of me," Jake replied calmly. Her eyes narrowed. "As your bound warrior, I am forced to be your guide during the trials. If you die dishonorably, it reflects on me. Then I guess you'd better help me succeed." The first trial began the next morning at the Edge of Sorrows, a massive cliff overlooking an acidic sea. Jake stood at the edge, looking down at steaming green waters far below. "The trial of courage," Vexera announced. "You must dive into the burning sea and retrieve a crystal from the bottom." Jake looked at her in disbelief. "The water is acid." "Not acid," she corrected, "but it burns like fire on the skin. You have 10 minutes before permanent damage occurs." Jake studied the sea carefully. "How do Keltari warriors do this?" "We endure the pain," she said simply. Jake thought for a moment, then began removing parts of his uniform. He fashioned a tight covering for his face and hands using the water-resistant material. "What are you doing?" Vexera asked. "Adapting," Jake said before diving into the sea. The water burned despite his protection, but it was bearable. He swam deeper, eyes stinging, until he spotted the glowing crystals on the seabed. Grabbing one, he pushed off the bottom and surfaced with a gasp of pain. When he climbed back to the cliff, body red and raw, Vexera was staring at him with an unreadable expression. "You didn't just endure," she said. "You found another way." "Humans adapt," Jake said through gritted teeth. "It's how we've survived." "The next 6 trials will not be so easy," she warned, but Jake noticed something had changed in her voice. It wasn't respect, not yet, but perhaps curiosity. 3 trials later, Jake had surprised not only Vexera but himself. He'd solved a deadly puzzle room by recognizing patterns no Keltari had seen before. He'd crossed the desert of whispers by using earth science to find water where the Keltari saw none. And he'd passed the memory challenge by using human mnemonic techniques. During the 4th trial, deep in the crystal caves, disaster struck. A young Keltari who had been watching the trials ventured too close to an unstable section of the cave. Jake heard the crack before anyone else did. Without thinking, he dove for the child as the ceiling collapsed. Pain exploded across his back as rocks rained down, but he covered the young alien with his body until the rumbling stopped. When the dust cleared, Vexera and the others dug them out. The child was unharmed. Jake's back was bleeding and bruised, but he could still move. "Why?" Vexera asked as she helped him stand. "You could have let the child die. No one would blame an outsider." Jake looked at her in shock. "That's not who humans are. At least, not who we try to be." As they left the caves, Jake noticed the Kelteri warriors watching him differently, and for the first time, Vexera walked beside him rather than behind. Jake completed the 7th trial just as Salforia's smallest moon rose over the horizon. His body ached from wounds and exhaustion, but pride filled his chest. No human had ever faced such challenges, and he had passed them all. Elder Zorkel raised a ceremonial staff. "Commander Jake Hudson has completed the trial of 7 moons. The binding between him and Vexera is confirmed by ancient law." The gathered Kelteri warriors thumped their chests in reluctant recognition. Even Chief Korvac nodded, though his eyes remained cold. As the crowd began to disperse, a tall Kelteri warrior stepped forward. His blue skin was darker than most, covered in scars and tribal markings. The other warriors immediately moved back, creating space around him. "I am Dreskar, war leader of the northern clans," he announced, his voice deep and threatening. "And I challenge the human for the right to claim Vexera." A murmur ran through the crowd. Jake looked at Vexera, whose face had gone still. "What does this mean?" Jake asked her quietly. "Dreskar has sought me as his mate for many seasons," she explained, her voice low. "He now claims the right of challenge for my binding." Elder Zorkel stepped between them. "This is his right under ancient law. If you refuse, you forfeit your binding to Vexera." "And if I accept?" Jake asked. "It is combat to the death," Vexera said flatly. "Dreskar has never been defeated." Jake looked at the massive warrior, who stood at least a foot taller than him and probably weighed twice as much. After barely surviving the trials, he was in no condition to fight. But he had come too far to back down now. The alliance between their worlds might depend on this moment. "I accept the challenge," Jake said. Dreskar smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Tomorrow at dawn, prepare to die, human." That night, Vexera came to Jake's quarters, surprising him. "You need training if you are to survive tomorrow," she said. "Why help me?" Jake asked. "Wouldn't you prefer to be bound to one of your own kind?" Vexera's black eyes studied him. "Dreskar is cruel, and you have shown courage I did not expect from a human." For the next several hours, Vexera taught Jake Kelteri fighting techniques, showing him how to use Dreskar's strength against him. "Your smaller size can be an advantage," she explained. "Kelteri warriors expect direct attacks. Your human ways might confuse him." As they trained, Jake told her stories of Earth, of oceans and mountains, of human cities and traditions. To his surprise, she listened with interest. "Your world sounds beautiful," she admitted. "Different from our harsh lands." "Different, yes, but Salforia has its own beauty," Jake said. "Like its people." Vexera looked away quickly, but not before Jake caught a flicker of something new in her eyes. Morning came too soon. Jake stood in the combat circle, facing Dreskar. The warrior held a curved blade in each hand, while Jake had chosen a simple staff. "Begin," shouted Elder Zorkel. Dreskar charged immediately. Jake dodged, using the techniques Vexera had taught him. He moved differently than a Kelteri would, circling rather than meeting force with force. "Stand and fight." Dreskar roared in frustration. The battle continued, with Jake avoiding direct confrontation, using his staff to deflect and disturb Dreskar's balance. The crowd watched in confusion at this strange fighting style. Then Jake made a mistake. He moved too slowly, and Dreskar's blade caught his arm, cutting deep. Jake fell to one knee, blood flowing freely. Dreskar raised his weapons for the killing blow. Die with honor, at least, human. Jake looked past him to where Vexera stood. For the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. Fear for him. In that moment, Jake remembered something from his Earth combat training. He lunged forward instead of back, driving his fist upward in a perfect boxer's uppercut, catching the surprised Dreskar under his jaw. The Keltari warrior staggered, stunned by the unexpected move. Jake didn't waste the opening, swinging his staff in a wide arc that knocked Dreskar's legs from under him. The crowd gasped as the mighty warrior fell hard to the ground. Jake placed the end of his staff against Dreskar's throat. "Yield," Jake said firmly. Dreskar's eyes burned with hatred, but he nodded once. The combat circle erupted in chaos. No one had expected the human to win. Elder Zorkel raised his arms for silence. "The Star-Fisted One has won," he proclaimed, giving Jake a new title. The binding stands. As Jake limped from the circle, Vexera stepped forward to support him. For the first time, she looked at him not with resentment, but with something that might one day become respect. A week after Jake's victory over Dreskar, alarms blared throughout the Keltari capital. Jake rushed to the command center with Vexera at his side. The room was filled with warriors and elders gathered around a large holographic display. "What's happening?" Jake asked. Chief Korvac pointed to the display. "A signal from our outer sentries. The Void Hegemony fleet has changed course. They are moving faster than we predicted." Elder Zorkel looked grim. "They will reach our system in 30 days. Your Earth in 45. Captain Lewis, who had joined the Keltari Council meetings since Jake's trials, shook his head. "Earth's defenses aren't ready. We need more time." "Time is a luxury we no longer have," said Chief Korvac. He turned to the council. "We must decide now. Do we combine our forces with the humans, or retreat to the ancient strongholds as our ancestors did?" A heated debate broke out among the elders. Jake noticed that several council members who had previously supported the alliance were now arguing against it. "Something's wrong," he whispered to Vexera. "Elder Turval was in favor of the alliance yesterday. Now he speaks against it." Vexera's eyes narrowed. "You're right. And look at the marks on his neck. Those weren't there before." Jake looked closer and saw small black marks, almost like bruises, on the elder's blue skin. Similar marks were visible on 2 other council members who had changed their positions. Later that night, Jake and Vexera searched the archives for information about these strange marks. "Here," Vexera said, pointing to an ancient text. "The Black Touch, a sign of mind control used by the shadows of the Void." Jake's blood ran cold. "The Void Hegemony has infiltrated your council." "We must tell my father," Vexera said, gathering the evidence. But when they presented their findings to Chief Korvac and the remaining elders, they were met with disbelief. "You dare accuse honored council members of treachery?" growled a senior elder. "This is clearly a human plot to create division. My daughter has been too long under human influence," Chief Korvac said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Guards, take them both to the holding cells until we decide their punishment." As warriors closed in, Jake and Vexera exchanged a quick glance. Without words, they knew what to do. Vexera knocked out the lights while Jake used a smoke device he'd kept from Earth. In the confusion, they escaped the council chamber. "We need to get to your ship," Vexera said as they ran through darkened hallways. "We must warn your people about the Void Hegemony's true plan." "The ship is being guarded," Jake replied. "But I know another way out." To Vexera's surprise, Jake led them through a series of passages that even she didn't know existed. "How did you learn these paths?" she asked. "During the 5th trial, I memorized the old city maps in the archives. These tunnels were used during ancient wars." Vexera looked at him with new respect. "You continue to surprise me, Jake Hudson." They emerged outside the city walls, alarms blaring behind them. The sacred forests lay ahead, dark and mysterious. "The forests are forbidden," Vexera hesitated. No Kelteri enters them. Why not? Ancient tales speak of spirits and dangerous powers. Most believe they are just stories to keep children from wandering too far. But you're not so sure, Jake finished. Well, we don't have many options right now. As they entered the forest, strange plants began to glow, lighting their way. The deeper they went, the more unusual the surroundings became. Trees with blue leaves reached hundreds of feet into the sky, and small creatures with 6 legs and glowing eyes watched from branches. After hours of walking, they came to a clearing. In the center stood stone structures unlike any Kelteri architecture Jake had seen. "What is this place?" he asked. Vexera touched one of the stone pillars in wonder. "I don't know. There are no records of buildings in the sacred forests." As moonlight filtered through the trees, symbols on the stones began to glow. Jake studied them with growing amazement. "Vexera," he said quietly, "these symbols. Some of them are similar to ancient Earth writing. How is that possible?" Before she could answer, a hidden door in the largest structure slid open, revealing a passage downward. "Should we go in?" Vexera asked. Jake nodded. "I think we're meant to." As they stepped forward together, both felt that they were about to discover something that would change everything they thought they knew about humans and Kelteri. The passage led Jake and Vexera deep underground. The walls around them glowed with a soft blue light, revealing more of the strange symbols as they descended. "These markings are thousands of years old," Vexera said, touching the wall. "Yet they look newly made." After walking for what seemed like hours, they entered a vast chamber. In the center stood a large crystal structure surrounded by what looked like control panels. The technology was unlike anything Jake had seen on Earth or Xalforia. "What is this place?" Vexera whispered, her voice echoing in the chamber. Jake approached one of the panels. "It's some kind of command center, I think." When he touched the surface, the entire room lit up. The crystal in the center projected a holographic image of the galaxy. 2 planets glowed brighter than the others, Earth and Xalforia. "Look," Jake pointed to strange symbols appearing beneath the planets. "I recognize some of these. They're similar to ancient Earth writing, but also to your oldest Kelteri texts." Vexera studied the symbols, her eyes widening. "This says, 'the divided ones,' and here, 'seeded from the same source.'" More images appeared in the hologram. Ships leaving a dying world, traveling to different planets. The images showed beings that looked neither human nor Kelteri, but somehow like both. "I think I understand," Jake said slowly. "Our peoples, humans, and Kelteri, we were both created by the same race. They fled from something, the void hegemony." "The first ones," Vexera breathed. "Our oldest legends speak of beings who came from the stars and shaped our ancestors. We thought they were just myths." As they explored further, they found another chamber filled with technical designs and blueprints. Jake studied them with growing excitement. "Vexera, these are weapon designs, advanced technology that combines principles from both our worlds." "Can you understand them?" she asked. Jake nodded. "Some parts, yes. The energy principles are similar to Earth science, but more advanced. And these shield configurations, they're like your Kelteri technology, but much more powerful. Could they help us defeat the void hegemony?" "If we can build them, yes. But we'd need both human and Kelteri scientists working together." They spent hours studying the ancient knowledge. Jake shared human scientific concepts, while Vexera explained Kelteri spiritual beliefs that surprisingly related to the technology they were examining. "Your people's spiritual energy techniques," Jake said, "they're actually manipulating quantum fields. You've been using science without calling it that." "And your science," Vexera replied, "touches on things our elders would call soul energy. Perhaps our ways are not so different after all." As they worked, Vexera watched Jake with new eyes. His quick understanding of complex ideas impressed her, and his respect for her knowledge made her feel valued in a way Drazkar never had. For his part, Jake was amazed by Vexera's intuitive grasp of concepts that took humans years to learn. Her warriors' discipline, once intimidating, now seemed admirable. Their work was interrupted by a loud rumbling from above. Dust fell from the ceiling as the ground shook. "What's happening?" Jake asked. Vexera checked the entrance tunnel. "Someone's found us, and they're using explosives to get in." They rushed back to the main chamber just as a section of wall collapsed. Through the dust came dark figures in unfamiliar armor, not Keltari warriors. "Void Hegemony scouts," Vexera hissed, drawing her weapon. Jake grabbed a metal rod from one of the displays. "How did they find us?" "They must have tracked the energy signature when we activated this place." The first scout fired a weapon that shot black energy bolts. Jake dodged while Vexera charged forward, her fighting skills impressive even against these advanced enemies. Jake noticed how her movements complemented his own. Where she was direct and powerful, he was quick and unpredictable. Together, they fought their way through the scouts. "We need to get this knowledge to our people," Jake said as they made their way to an emergency exit shown on an ancient map. "It's our only hope now." "Yes," Vexera agreed, surprising Jake by taking his hand. "Our only hope." 3 days after their discovery in the ruins, Jake and Vexera crouched on a rooftop overlooking the main square of the Keltari capital. The city was alive with lights and movement as the Festival of Ancestors began. "Perfect timing," Jake said. "Everyone will be gathered in one place." Vexera nodded. "The infected council members won't expect us to return so boldly." They had spent days copying the ancient knowledge onto portable devices and planning their return. Now, they watched as both Keltari citizens and the remaining human delegation gathered for the sacred festival. "Your Captain Lewis is there," Vexera pointed. "And my father." Jake studied the crowd. "I can see Elder Turval and the other infected council members. The marks on their necks have grown. Then we must act quickly. The Void Hegemony's control is spreading." They made their way through back alleys to the central temple where the festival ceremony would take place. Disguised in festival cloaks, they slipped into the crowd unnoticed. Inside the great temple, Chief Korvac stood on a platform with the council members and Captain Lewis. Elder Turval was speaking, his voice strong, but his words troubling. "The signs are clear," he announced. "The ancestors warn us against alliance with the humans. We must retreat to the ancient strongholds and leave the outsiders to their fate." Many Keltari nodded in agreement, but others looked uncertain. Jake saw his chance and moved toward the platform, Vexera close behind. "The true message of the ancestors is being hidden from you," Jake called out, throwing back his hood. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Guards moved forward but hesitated when Vexera revealed herself beside Jake. "My daughter," Chief Korvac's voice showed both relief and anger. "You return in dishonor, bringing the human who corrupted you." "No, father," Vexera said, her voice carrying across the temple. "I returned bringing truth." She held up a device showing images from the ancient ruins. "The humans are not our enemies. We share the same creators, the same ancestors who flooded the Void Hegemony long ago." The crowd murmured in shock as the holographic evidence played for all to see. Elder Turval's face twisted with rage. "Lies. Destroy them." "Look at his neck," Jake shouted, pointing to the black marks that now pulsed visibly. "He is controlled by the enemy. The Void Hegemony has infiltrated your council." Captain Lewis stood up. "It's true. Earth scientists have seen these parasitic controls before, on a smaller scale." As doubt spread through the crowd, Elder Turval and the other infected council members began to convulse. Black fluid leaked from their eyes as the parasites controlling them reacted to being exposed. "Seize them," ordered Chief Korvac. Chaos erupted as guards moved to capture the infected elders. In the confusion, Vexera stepped forward to address the gathering. "I serve Jake Hudson, not because ancient law demands it, she declared loudly, causing the room to still. "But by my choice. He has proven himself worthy not just of my service, but of our respect and alliance." Her words shocked everyone, breaking centuries of tradition. Such a statement had never been made by a bound warrior before. As the crowd's attention focused on Vexera, Jake noticed one of the infected elders raising a strange weapon aimed at the High Elder. Without thinking, Jake lunged forward, pushing the elderly Kelteri aside. Searing pain tore through Jake's chest as the weapon discharged. He collapsed to the ground, blood seeping through his clothes. "Jake!" Vexera's scream cut through the noise as she rushed to his side. The temple guards quickly subdued the infected elders, but Jake's condition was worsening by the second. The weapon had left a wound that glowed with black energy. "The parasite weapon," Captain Lewis said, kneeling beside them. "It's designed to corrupt the victim's life force." Vexera's eyes filled with tears, something Jake had never seen before. "I won't let you die," she whispered. She turned to her father. "I must perform the life bond ritual." Chief Korvac looked stunned. "That is forbidden. To share life force with an outsider." "I don't care," Vexera said fiercely. "He saved your life, father, and he may yet save all our worlds." Without waiting for permission, Vexera placed her hands on Jake's wound and began chanting in ancient Kelteri. Her skin began to glow with blue light that flowed into Jake's body, fighting back the black corruption. The crowd watched in awe as human and Kelteri energy merged, creating a purple light that enveloped them both. When the light faded, Jake's wound had closed, and both he and Vexera bore matching silver marks on their skin. Jake opened his eyes, feeling Vexera's presence in his mind, a connection deeper than words. Asterisk, "Can you hear me?" Asterisk, her thoughts reached him. Asterisk, "Yes," asterisk, he replied without speaking. Asterisk, "What happened?" Asterisk. Asterisk, "We are bonded now," asterisk, came her answer. Asterisk, "Not by ancient law, but by something much stronger." Asterisk. 1 Earth year after the events at the Festival of Ancestors, a massive fleet gathered at the edge of the Solthorian system. Ships of human and Kelteri design flew together, their combined technologies creating the most powerful defense force either species had ever assembled. On the command deck of the flagship, Jake and Vexera stood side by side, watching the tactical displays. Their matching silver marks glowed softly on their skin, a reminder of the life bond they now shared. Asterisk, "They're coming," asterisk, Vexera's thoughts reached Jake through their mental connection. Asterisk, "Yes. The scouts report the Void Hegemony fleet will arrive within the hour." Asterisk, Jake replied silently. In the year since their bonding, they had led the combined efforts of both worlds to prepare for this moment. Earth scientists and Kelteri craftsmen had worked together to build weapons and shields based on the ancient designs from the ruins. The telepathic bond Jake and Vexera shared had become a symbol of what the two species could achieve together. "Commander Hudson, all ships report ready," said a human officer. "Warrior Vexera, the Kelteri battle groups await your command," added a blue-skinned lieutenant. Jake looked at Vexera, a smile passing between them. They no longer needed words to understand each other, but they spoke aloud for the crew. "Send the signal," Jake ordered. "All ships to battle positions." "Activate the shield network," Vexera commanded. "Prepare main weapons." The view screen showed hundreds of ships moving into formation. Human vessels were fast and heavily armed, while Kelteri ships provided powerful shields and energy weapons. Together, they formed a defense that neither species could have created alone. "Long-range sensors detecting Void Hegemony vessels," reported a sensor officer. "Over 300 ships approaching." The command deck fell silent. Despite all their preparations, they were outnumbered. "Remember the plan," Jake said firmly. "We don't need to defeat them all. We just need to clear a path to their command ship." Vexera nodded. "The ancient weapon will do the rest." As the enemy fleet appeared in normal space, black ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, Jake felt a familiar presence in his mind. Asterisk, we've come a long way from you throwing a spear at me, asterisk, he thought to Vexera. She smiled, a gesture that had once been rare but now came naturally. Asterisk, if I had known catching it would lead to this, I might have thrown it harder, asterisk. Enemy ships launching attack vessels, called out the tactical officer. They're targeting our forward defenses. Jake straightened. All ships engage as planned. Battle groups 1 through 4, draw their fire. Group 5, prepare for our attack run. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. The battle was intense and chaotic, but the combined human-Keltari forces held their ground. Their year of training together paid off as they anticipated each other's moves and covered each other's weaknesses. Forward path is clearing, reported Vexera. Enemy command ship is exposed. This was the moment they had been waiting for. According to the ancient knowledge, the Void Hegemony could only be defeated by striking at the central command vessel that controlled the hive mind of their forces. Prepare the prototype, Jake ordered. In the ship's hangar, a small vessel unlike any other waited. Built with technology from both worlds and powered by the ancient designs, it was their best hope, and possibly a one-way mission. Who will pilot it? Asked Chief Korvac, who had joined the battle as an advisor. Jake and Vexera exchanged a look. We will, they said together. But you are both too valuable to lose, protested Captain Lewis. The prototype requires our telepathic bond to operate, Vexera explained. No one else can do this. As they prepared to leave, Chief Korvac approached them. When you caught my daughter's spear, human, I thought it was the worst day of our people's history. He placed his hand on Jake's shoulder. I was wrong. May the ancestors guide you both. Minutes later, Jake and Vexera piloted the small vessel toward the massive enemy mothership. Enemy fighters swarmed around them, but the prototype's advanced shields held. Asterisk ready? Asterisk Jake asked. Asterisk always, asterisk Vexera replied, her confidence flowing through their bond. Together, they activated the ancient weapon, a beam of purple energy, the same color as their bonded life force, shot from their ship and struck the enemy mothership. A dimensional rift began to form, tearing the fabric of space around the Void Hegemony fleet. It's working, Jake shouted as the enemy ships were pulled toward the rift. We need to get out of range, Vexera warned, already turning their ship away. The prototype vessel strained against the pull of the rift as they pushed its engines to maximum. For a moment, it seemed they too would be consumed by the dimensional tear they had created. Then, with a final burst of power, they broke free just as the enemy mothership collapsed in on itself, taking the rest of the Void Hegemony fleet with it. In the aftermath, as the combined fleet celebrated their victory, Jake and Vexera stood before representatives of both worlds. The High Elder of Salthoria held up the spear that had started it all, now a symbol of their alliance. From this day forward, the Elder declared, this spear shall represent not the binding of one to another, but the bond between our worlds. Not servitude, but partnership in facing whatever challenges the universe may bring. Jake looked at Vexera, his bound warrior who had become so much more. Asterisk, what happens now? Asterisk, he asked through their bond. Vexera took his hand, her once cold eyes now warm with emotion. Asterisk, now we build something neither of our peoples could imagine alone. Asterisk. As representatives of two worlds once separated by light years and misunderstanding, they stepped forward together, ready to face the future as one.